Right, so now we've got, for those who are here, we've got the verbal right of reply from the council officers, and then that will be provided later on in writing. And Mr. Witham, you're going to do it on behalf of all officers, and then if we have any questions or issues to raise, we'll deal with it. So as these two gentlemen have sat here patiently, should we deal with staff first, and then we can get with them?
By all means.
It's up to you, but I just...
No, that's, I have claims around that, Mr. Chair, so it's perfectly acceptable. First, just a reminder and request, when dealing with site visits, the most appropriate way to deal with that is probably through AK.
Yeah.
And just a reminder to invite AK2, please, to help coordinate and manage those site visits. That would be really cool. Thank you. Final holdings regarding the Innovation Park. So, Mr. Chair, how we tend to run these things is these are the things we think we should reply to and the things we think you might want us to reply to. So the scope is the questions and obviously further filling in the picture with additional direction. So this is a first cut at your direction. Okay, so there was in terms of discussion around certain matters being parked. In particular, I guess some of the housing requirements or requests around what is appropriate and certainly in alignment with the rural provisions. We suggested that might be a good thing to consider, not in terms of potentially sitting on our hands, but perhaps with further engagement with North holdings. In particular, they may wish to submit some more helpful detail on matters that we can consider. We'll come back to the panel when we think there's a suitable agreed time that's most appropriate to do so.
They were happy with providing something, and maybe Mr. Smith liaison with Jerome on that issue.
You can direct that, Mr. Chair.
Well,
I'm sure we can sort that out.
Yeah, I'll leave it to staff to sort out. I mean, I think that's sometimes the easiest. I mean, unless you want to keep them totally separate so they come in, but then it might end up having to come back and have a hearing. So
no. It's
probably better that maybe Mr. Smith puts in something that Farmer Golden would like. Jerome, then maybe you can have a discussion about it, and maybe if there's a disagreement still, they can provide a plan, whatever they've discussed, outline anything that they don't agree on, and outline what they agree on, and then we can make the decision.
It sounds like a very good process.
So you understand that? And you, Mr. Smith? You happy with that? Yeah.
So again, a range of matters, again related to that, childcare associated with the on-site activities, expansion of the scope of accommodation around staff, owner occupiers, and how that works in terms of the provisions we have. Certainly some consideration around, this is possibly encapsulated with the initial discussion that we've talked about, Mr. Chair, but temporary accommodation for staff, students versus permanent accommodation on the site. And I guess matters around things like density, typologies, very interested in hearing. We will respond to questions. We've probably already responded to those. Farm Holdings have probably given you enough background around the process of the Section 32 around where the density or rural production density has come from. I think that was a suggestion by them through the initial position put to council, and it came back after assessment slightly different. In terms of health and safety issues raised around sort of the childcare, and perhaps would also equally apply to any accommodation on the site as well. The childcare aspect of it, look, I'm aware that there's quite considerable regulations around childcare facilities. It's probably one of the most regulated aspects in New Zealand currently. However, we've heard, I guess, further detail around potential more appropriate sightings and locations on the site. Again, I suspect that might be further work that we can do with Farmer Collins around specifically identifying where might be appropriate locations or more appropriate locations for these
Or the
activities.
childcare centre, because they mentioned near the entrance. didn't they?
That's correct, yeah.
But yeah. Okay. What about, we raised, I'm sorry, question about limiting the numbers?
So my interpretation, well, it was, you could get some clarity on that because my interpretation was whether it was number of childcare facilities, full stop, or number of children. I took it to mean number of facilities. Correct?
I was thinking both as well, because the scale relates to the fees of that.
So that might be in relation to, say, perhaps a theoretical permitted activity standard, for example. Is that what you're considering?
I'm not sure of any scale of activities or any rule that pertains to the number of children that would trigger resource consent. I think all of the activities will be controlled to be anyway based on design.
Buildings would be?
Yeah, you control activity.
Yes.
So, ability to impose conditions through that in relation to the number of children each building.
An assessment criteria for jurisdiction.
I don't think it should be limited to one. There's potential for at least two. That's childcare facilities, because most can only operate with 30 kids comfortably for the number of staff. Sorry, I'm going
No,
to.
that's right. That's, I mean, I don't know, that's all right. Anyway, you can have a look at it. The far north hole and getting, they come up with an idea where the accommodation could go, and on an area they identified, you might come up with a possible 2 areas or 2.
Just thinking strategically,
Yeah.
you know, the growth of that park.
Yep.
Excellent. So further, we'll look at the discussions or evidence given around retail floor area limitations and potentially the linkages to primary production activities or ancillary to activities. We'll be responding on those matters. We will be providing a response also on the 300 square metre rule around education facilities, acknowledging that that doesn't match those activities that have been already approved on the site. We'll be providing comment on the provisions around traffic calculations. And we will be providing comment on the particular policy that includes the MOU arrangement. We'll be reviewing that and putting a final position on that to you as well. And that's all the matters that we had set down for Napa Innovation. Special purpose zone. Are there any more?
No, that's
Did you
all.
mention stormwater?
We did not mention stormwater. Jerome, are there any further comments on stormwater apart from what's already in your section 32A?
Specifically, 42 hours is around addressing gaps in the data distribution. There is a specific kind of
No, just what,
It's all along.
yeah,
I think you've got comprehensive, my understanding, they've got comprehensive stormwater, sewage, drainage, all from the NRC. And I think the comment was that.
And also a giant fan.
some of those broader submission points discussed earlier this morning around best practice for stormwater management have all been allocated to the subdivisions of it.
Yeah.
So I'll be used quite comprehensively for that.
awesome, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Motorola Island, a comment will be, going to get a comment on that land use and subdivision policy, recognising in the explanation that is how we have framed those policies throughout the PDP. We are going to go back and talk to our appropriate parties at council around the monitoring of Whale Bridge and in particular those PET policies.
So from a point, okay, so to find out whether that bit of paper was actually a policy or
We can do that as well. Look, I would note that there was perhaps one provision on that policy that would be of interest to council. All the others perhaps would be irrespective of any of our needs. And if a country club perhaps wishes to ask a barking dog to leave, they're perfectly entitled to do it of their own accord. So there was perhaps only one item on that I saw that was directly related to our biodiversity function that I just want to talk about. So we'll put a little bit of effort into that, Mr. Chair, but I think when you're dealing certainly with something such as that, running a comprehensive and by one administrative body, I think that's a difficult task.
I think you have to report back on it, but to what extent, the thing, because we could take it out of the district plan, and Quail Ridge could do exactly the same, and we could maybe make dog people happy, but Quail Ridge can still do what they want, and Doc don't want dogs in the reserve, my understanding. But anyway, okay.
Yeah, and as a former dog staffer, I can say that the presumption is that dogs aren't allowed on any dog land unless they're otherwise approved to be there. So the presumption is that they're actually allowed on that sort of PCL.
Well, there's a...
Then he was a former dog staffer.
She was nice to me. Lady was nice to me.
Yeah.
But it's not subdivision.
I think just coming back with the wording as well.
Yeah, and we'll provide comment on any reading that we receive. And actually, our friends gone. Actually, what we didn't agree on actually was the time frame to get our friends at NUMPA to respond to us. It would be good if they had, well, depends how urgently you want to respond on those matters, Mr. Chair.
I mean, you do it when you can. You have to think about it and then you tell us.
Well,
I mean,
I think he was referring to us being direct comments.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I said a week, you said a month.
Oh.
I think a month.
I think a week.
How long?
Maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, so for the parties that represented Benson Farms and all those, yeah, they had one provision to get back to us on, and they were given a week by the previous panel.
It's a different panel.
Yeah, but that puts pressure on Jerome as well, so.
I mean, personally, I think the 5 days around the reasonable.
Okay, there you go. 5 days or a week. A week for both of them.
So they'll align up with, I guess, the formal right of reply, written right of replies. So.
And if you explain to them why, then you will.
What we'll do is I can communicate that to them, and if they have any concerns, we can come back to them and
Excellent. Yeah, and I also note, I guess, from the watchdogs that, there was some comment on the Animal Control Act and it's the functions that are available to council under that. The purpose, I think, is very different between what we have in the district plan around our obligations around Indigenous biodiversity versus, control of animals, around stopping people, registration. So I think there is obviously a dedicated animal control team that go around and monitor animal behaviour on those matters, whereas obviously there is not through the other side of it. But that irrespective, yeah.
I think you'll need to consider the response as well, and the words that are provided from the
Absolutely, yeah. The submittal will provide us some.
But are you talking about the policy? Or what do you?
Yeah, I'm not sure what she's going to come back with, but
I don't think
Bring
she's
it
going
back to
to
council.
she's going to bring that to the council, from what I understand.
Yeah,
Not to us, because we can't do
change
anything.
our practice note.
Change the
Well-
practice now.
my understanding is that she's going to be going through the outline, which outline today she's going to be going through each hearing and actually
Oh, that's a
You
different,
change
okay.
your plan.
Yeah, that's a different thing. I thought you meant you're talking about the practice and all that we, or people are using in rules and conditions. That's what I suggested, she get a word copy and do the track changes and then go to the council with it. I don't think she's going to bring it back to us because we can't do anything about that because it's a council policy, not a district.
Well,
It is a district plan. It's registered as a consent notice.
I'll say a practice note possibly,
Subdivisions.
Pardon?
a practice note possibly wouldn't be council policy, it would be practice of staff.
Yeah.
So how it would need quite a considerable change, I would think, to even that. Keeping in mind that Mr. Wyeth covers a lot of those matters that hearing for Indigenous biodiversity and all the natural environment chapters, so it's obviously a key subject that
Yes.
he will address at that hearing in a more probably comprehensive and wide-ranging way. Okay. We'll provide, I guess, a little bit more clarity around the origins of the policy in terms of how it came into Bow Ridge, whether it was by way of submission or included in either the resource consent and or the plan change when it was initiated by the developer, possibly as a side agreement or a discussion with interested or affected parties prior to that. So we'll provide that clarification as well. Mr. Chair, there might be an opportunity for you to provide some direction to colleagues behind us, please.
Regarding the discussion that you and Jerome are going to have, our suggestion is you have a week to come forward with what you propose for the accommodation, right?
Yeah.
And the childcare centres and locations if you can. And then you provide that to Jerome and then he's going to have a week to then respond.
Okay, so it's just specifically the childcare,
And the house
accommodation,
Yeah.
And typologies.
home,
Typologies.
typologies. Okay.
Because, yeah. And how many you're talking about? Because
Do you know when you might do the site visit?
After we have that information.
Okay.
you probably afterwards so we can see where you're talking about.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah,
And we
we're going for that.
then we would come with AK and then if Andy, is it? No, what's your name?
Sorry, I'm Adrian.
Adrian, if he's the best one to show us around, as long as he doesn't talk about the hearing, I'm quite happy as long as AK and she can verify, otherwise it'll have to be somebody else, but you're probably the best person to show us around.
Yes,
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll deal with that closer to
There's
time.
another staff member that they could get to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
What are you doing, still sitting there?
We're working straight to that's what it's still here. Thanks, guys.
Let's see.
Sorry.
That's very good.
and we note actually as well related to the both dog issue and NAPA, when we received the draft from Farm Farmer Holdings, that they had included that provision in the draft framework, so that's of their origin. Mr. White also handled that as well, that particular chapter, and it was being, and it's part of its development. There's a range of matters that Mr. White has said he'll respond to, basically almost all of Ms. McGrath's evidence, which is so the definition of possible related activities, for example, acknowledging that there are a number of traffic-related submissions, and Mr. White also very helpfully identified that there is a submission to the hospital parking provisions by Water. So that matter is still live for the panels oncoming. Matters on height, commercial services, Rongoa Māori, visitor accommodation, care centres, parking, and if there's any other relevant matters, so yeah, Mr. White will responded quite quite a substantive response to those after hearing evidence.
I don't think they're far apart, though. It seems farther than what possibly we think.
Yes, no, I agree, but certainly when it gets to
Yeah, I
some time to
understand.
kind of work out sort of language and think through the matters. But I think there are a number of pieces of evidence that have brought the parties close together, a number of submitters today. So, and that's probably the substantive matters that we've put together, Mr. Chair.
Can you deal with the airport along with it?
Look,
Oh, no, you don't have to. No, I don't know.
if there was any questions, we hadn't intended to provide.
I'm quite happy with
Oh, just that Orongo Bay, the issue raised by Russell Protection Society, although it wasn't, I did ask the question of Steve, so I think we need to respond to that.
It's probably more to do with the existing second-hand houses that are stored on there.
That is exactly
And
what.
whether there should be an enforcement rather than what we can deal with. So you can maybe pass that on to the enforcement on.
We have discussed that. Kent, would you like some comments on that, on your investigations around that, Kenton?
Yeah, well, just that any development or use of the site had to go through to get a comprehensive development plan, which would have been a resource consent application at the time. So anything that's on there now has presumably been permitted unless it's legally placed on there. So,
Yeah, well, it's just been parked up and eventually moved on. Nobody's developing anything, it's just a parking lot.
As a minimum, I think, just casting concerns on that it was raised at the district plan here to the enforcement. That's all they can do. I don't think we can deal with it here.
So for clarity, the concern rate is raised with the operative plan and what's allowed, or is the question over what equally the proposed plan is?
Yes.
What?
So I don't know if it's a misunderstanding by I'm sure it's not a misunderstanding by Mr. Haynes, but what he's doing is not allowed.
Possibly. That's why.
Yeah, look, again, and Kenton might be able to provide clarify. I think we saw advice from our compliance team on the matter.
You said 6 months, so.
No, so that was the confusion around the conditions relating to relocatable buildings versus the storage of buildings on a site as a sort of commercial slash industrial
Well,
activity.
that one thing wrong will be you might have to report back to us
Okay,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah,
and just pass the concerns on to the enforcement.
Thank you.
yeah.
Cool, Bill.
All right?
Anything further?
I don't think so. Motor, yeah, any thoughts on that? Anything?
It was easy.
No, anything? The city?
Maybe not for you.
I mean, from the staff point of view, we are talking about possibly visiting Kawa Hospital
Yeah.
site. Napa, do you suggest we visit, I'm just asking you, and you say yes or no, do you suggest we visit anywhere else?
Quite a high hospital, you're not familiar with it, just because of proximity to residential dwellings here. Probably. Is that something we're giving due
I think
consideration?
I think you are on the way to go. All right, okay, yeah.
Definitely for the high elevation to boundary of the sunlight.
So Mr. White,
Specification.
so Mr. White has indicated that there may be a horses for horses approach, just being pragmatic around some of the physical locations. of some of
Different
the-
values have a different height.
or potentially different local sites. So there'll be sites that are more sensitive to population and boundary issues than others. So that's part of that point that we'll look back on.
The suggestion I wanted to remove, the 3 hospitals, if you go to wanted to remove, I think you probably said it the three hospitals are very different
Mm.
in their setting and also in scale.
It's not really work at the moment.
Actually, sorry.
And Kaita also has different topology, so, because of, the site itself and what's physically developed as a hospital now versus the map that we've shown of the land that Kaita owns, and will come up in the rezoning and stuff.
And they certainly offer different services as well, so some, obviously Kaitaia does operations in very different.
That's going to be interesting, site visit. Are you going to come down and meet us down here so we can drive you back?
We could try and coordinate it, okay, so that, if something perhaps
Right.
start at Bayonne Hospital, I'll go up
Do it the next day, and then that week.
and then come back with
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah, we can do.
If we can coordinate it so you're down here, you can lift by somebody else to come down, and then we can take you home.
Or that, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? No? Thank you. Yeah, so I have got, oh my God, I haven't thought really else this morning. So if there's nothing else, we'll, Karakia?
Okay. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa te atua, te tātou aiki o ikaraiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whenua panipanga ki te wairua tapu, ake. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop recording.
It's just